Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's meeting of the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday the 14th of October. I want to remind members that the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards. The first item on tonight's agenda is apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Pallett and Councillor Wadrup. Have we got any other apologies? Councillor Helen Hadley is running about 5-10 minutes late, so she'll be here as soon as she can. Second item on the agenda is to receive the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the previous meeting held on the 9th of July 2025 are here for approval. If everyone's happy that they are an accurate record, could I have a mover? Councillor Lee Clark, and a seconder, Councillor Margaret Clark. All those in favour? That's fine, no worries. Great, thank you, that's carried. Item number 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Has anybody got any interest they'd like to declare that are relevant to tonight's agenda items? No, brilliant. Item number 4 is update from chair. I have just a couple of things. Firstly, I was unable to make the last overboard body meeting, but the next one is on Monday at the County Council. So I will be in attendance at that and be able to provide the committee with an update. So if anyone has any items on the agenda, which have you managed to send around the agenda, Leanne?
You know, I don't know
if we've had it yet.
We will have had it. It was out last week. I'll double check. If not, I'll get it out tomorrow.
No worries.
I
hopefully we'll send it around to members. If there's anything on that agenda that you'd like to flag, anything that you'd like to take to pass on to me to take to the committee, just let me know before Monday. I've also been really busy alongside other councillors and members of the community with the Tamworth Calls It Out campaign. Been really busy having hospitality venues sign commitment charters, sports clubs. We did a charity session at Immortal MMA for Pathway Project, and we've got a few more things coming up over the next few weeks. So just a thank you really to everyone who's shown their support to the campaign, and the fantastic people in our community who have signed our commitment charters. Item number 5 on the agenda is responses to reports of the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee. We have no updates to share. Item number 6 is considerations of matters referred to the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee from Cabinet or Council, and we don't have any items to share on that. Item number 7 is update on health-related matters considered by Staffordshire County Council. Like I said, the most recent meeting of the Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee was on the 15th of September, and that meeting is available online. But like I said, I was out of the country, so I was unable to attend that one. But like I said, the next meeting is on Monday, so we'll be resharing that agenda so everyone can know what's going on. So we don't have anything that's been sent specifically by the county, but Councillor Luca, thank you for joining us this evening. Really appreciate you coming along. If there's any updates that you'd like to provide, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. The only thing I can actually tell you at the moment is when the last time we had the NHS ICB come out to her, the report that they gave her wasn't actually fit for purpose. So we sent them away and asked them to actually come back with a report. Because to give you an idea, what they actually sent me was 1 page and about 5 slides. And this is when they're talking about saving £306 million and affecting 1,100 positions. So obviously, as you've just mentioned, the updated, when we changed the meeting, is now Monday coming. And I can tell you that they have actually sent a correct report, and we will be scrutinising it on Monday and then obviously feeding it down to us. Other than that, at the minute, I don't have actually that much to say on it because of obviously the lack of information that they provided us the last time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luca, and completely agree. It was one of the things that I flagged when I attended the committee that the ICB were at a few months ago. I think everyone has a lot of concerns about the savings that they need to make and the impact that that's going to have on patients and staff. So completely agree with you that obviously what they sent over, definitely more information is needed. So we look forward to hearing more on that when they come back to you. Moving on to agenda item number 8, we have got Safeguarding Children and Adults at Risk of Abuse report from April 2025 to September 2025. I want to welcome the portfolio holder for People Services, Engagement, Leisure and Partnerships. Leisure. I've added another responsibility onto you there, Councillor Daniels. My apologies. And I'd like to welcome the Partnerships Vulnerability Officer, who is joining us virtually this evening, to update the committee on safeguarding.
Sorry, and that's my fault on there. This is Councillor Smith's report, not Councillor Daniels. So apologies, I put the wrong portfolio holder in there.
Don't worry, it's fine. Apologies, Councillor Smith. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, no worries. But we have got the Partnerships Vulnerability Officer to update the committee, who's joining us virtually via Teams. So I will hand over to the portfolio holder.
I mean, Councillor Daniels can do it if she wants. That's fine with me. Anyway, the council has a legal responsibility to safeguard children and adults with care and support needs from abuse and neglect. The Safeguarding Children and Adults at Risk of Abuse and Neglect policy and procedure provides a framework for safeguarding and demonstrates the council's commitment to safeguarding children and adults at risk. Safeguarding is integrated into the day-to-day operations of the council, as you can expect, and the council responds to all safeguarding concerns raised in line with the safeguarding procedure. Reporting of concerns is fundamental in ensuring that children and adults at risk receive the necessary support to safeguard and promote their welfare. And the following information provides an overview of the number of safeguarding referrals received and an update on the safeguarding work that's taken place since the previous update. So, as you may see in the report, there's been an increase in the number of reports from staff regarding at-risk children and adults in Q3 and Q4. However, as the report states, this can be for a various number of reasons, really. So, staff have received additional training from different services, such as the Belong Network, the Staffordshire Safeguarding Children Partnership, and New Era. So this has given staff the training that they need to actually identify key issues. And there are many different organisations and groups and boards which we work quite closely with, and details are in the report, which I'll take as read. I don't know if the officer online wants to jump in and add anything else, but that's it from me for the moment.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you for the overview of the report. So as the figures went forward, they were obviously for Q1. The figures have slightly changed since the report was written. So the last update that we did at scrutiny was on the 20th of March 25. Since then, we've had Q2 figures that have been reported. So for Q2 at the moment, we've had 3 referrals for children that have come in, 7 referrals for adults and 2 miscellaneous. Miscellaneous, as it states on the report, is referrals that don't always hit the threshold, potentially for harm and go to adult services. That's not to say that they won't be looked at and supported through other through other avenues, such as the vulnerability partnership meetings, or it might be just for advice and guidance and support, or referral to another community group that can support that adult, that child, or that member of staff of that concern, worry about that child or family or adult, as mentioned. Moving through the report, again, quite detailed, the information that we've been doing. Safeguarding is always evolving, there's always updates and changes. Some of the updates that have come since the last report, the change of SCAS, which was once the Staffordshire Children's Advice and Support Team, is now known as Staffordshire Integrated Families Front Door Service. It does exactly the same, it's just a new acronym that the partnership seem to take on board. We are part of the Staffordshire Integrated Partnership meeting, so any changes that happen locally within Staffordshire, then the District Council represents that through the likes of Joe Sands and feed in from myself as well. So there will be some updates around thresholds and the levels of support need. Again, we disseminate that out through training to our staff members, we update them. They are giving quarterly updates of changes. We sign up to the newsletters as well for any updates that are going on locally and nationally. The main partnership meetings are around case reviews. So there have been, unfortunately, children who have died in Staffordshire over the last couple of years, and every case review into a child's death or where a child has been seriously abused or neglected, then those reviews are publicised on the Safeguarding Partnership pages, and then learning is associated through the reviews. And obviously that's why we have a lot of changes within the policies and procedures that happen in Staffordshire, and they run through the whole of Staffordshire, including Stoke-on-Trent as well. Is there any questions at this point before I move on? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just having a quick look at this, particularly adult safeguarding. I see that Q3 and Q4 there was 16 and 17 incidents on the chart, but do we have the information whether they are male or female, and if there's any trend between the sexes, if you know what I mean?
We have to be mindful of data protection, obviously what information we share in regards to that. Majority of, if you're referring to adults, the majority of adult referrals are male that are coming through, that we tend to see. A lot of them around wanting to self-harm or threatening to self-harm themselves. And I just think during that time, within those quarters, we're coming up to the Christmas sort of period, things are changing. Obviously, wages are changing, cost of living crisis, changing heating, bills start to go up, so people find they struggle financially. A lot of people get themselves into debt and arrears. So it's around that support and that help that we try to offer, not only to obviously the clients that are threatening and making these calls, but also to our staff as well, because it can be, you know, quite upsetting for staff members that are taking these calls. So we do lots of awareness around, you know, those members of the public that are threatened to harm themselves or threaten to take their own lives. And we've got a clear protocol and procedure that we use, and obviously we have a duty of care, so we would contact the police to make them aware of it. Do we safe and well? It would be discussed and followed up at the vulnerability partnership meetings that we have in place. And if we feel that there is a serious threat to harm, then we would 999 it and ask the ambulance service to go out and do a call on that family or that person.
Thanks for that.
Okay. So moving on, again, throughout the report, we talk about the other updates that we have in place and the work that we do. So we have the Community Safety Partnership that happens quarterly, and that's an opportunity to talk about all the aspects around community safety, the common trends, themes that are coming out. And this is a great networking opportunity where professionals and agencies can come together and talk about things that are going on locally within the borough and the work that we do with partners within the council and also our community and outside groups. And anyone can come along and obviously support the work of the community partnership and do a presentation and update to our partners, and that is all recorded and disseminated down to our local partners, especially for those who cannot attend, so they've got an update of what's happened and moving forward, and any agenda items that they can put forward. And that gives us an opportunity obviously to share good working and practice that we have in place as well. Contextual safeguarding, known as our MACE panels, which are our multi-agency child exploitation panels. These are county council led, chaired by the district manager for each children's safeguarding area, and it's a chance for professionals to come together and share any concerns around exploitation, whether that's sexual exploitation or criminal exploitation. And children are rated through a risk factor matrix. So any agency or professional that has concerns that there is a risk of any form of exploitation, they will lastly complete a risk factor matrix that is sent to the coordinators within the county council. They pull together the meeting of the MACE. Like I said, it is chaired by the district lead for that district area, and it's usually social workers that will come along and give an overview of the case of the child. It's also supported by the work of family support workers and professionals that work in the areas of exploitation. We also have a lot of support from education that will come in, police with their intel around any concerns or worries. And it's just, again, a bit of a networking opportunity to share local trends, practice and things that are going on locally, and also what we know about the young people. A lot of these young people, unfortunately, do come across other areas of concern, so they may be well known to us. They will be well known to us through our antisocial behaviour groups that we have. They may be known to us through the vulnerability partnership, and they also may be known to us from safeguarding. It also gives us an opportunity to pull together professionals meetings if we feel that a more professional approach is needed by set agencies, and it gives us more time to discuss the concerns and what support we can put in place to help that family or that young person that may be at risk of any form of exploitation moving forward. As I touched upon, the antisocial behaviour coordination group is a weekly group, so that runs every Wednesday afternoon at 2:30. It is chaired by the Homes and Communities manager in the Community Safety Partnerships team. It's an opportunity for any organisation, agency to come along and share any concerns around antisocial behaviour within the borough, any trends, any concerns, any worries. It's got a strong presence from police, from fire, from county, from obviously district council, other social landlords, housing groups will come along and attend and update. And it's just a bit of a talk about what's going on and what actions we can start to put in place and what support we can look at in regards to any concerns around antisocial behaviour and any trainings that are going on locally. And it will also link in with antisocial behaviour action week that we might do, because we've noticed a concern or a worry within the particular area or borough, and we work with our local partners around that as well. And then lastly, you'll see you've got the figures there for TVP. So the TVP is the Tamworth Vulnerability Partnership meeting. Again, that is a weekly meeting that runs on a Tuesday. Any agency or organisation can put a referral into the Vulnerability Partnership meeting. One of the biggest challenges for us, and it has been very successful, we did have a system that was called SharePoint, which was a county system. We've now moved across to our own Tamworth Borough Council system, so it gives us better access to the information. Obviously, we have to be aware of data protection and security, so we work very close with our IT and data protection team on how and when we share the information, who has access to that information. Referrals are then uploaded, and then it is shared at the TVP meeting, which is run through Teams, and it talks about any aspects of vulnerability. There is a case scenario that's been added in regards to some of the things that come through on vulnerability, and it's a partnership approach. Not one single agency can do this on their own. We have to work together with our outside agencies to support that individual that we have a concern or worry about, and where there is a threat of vulnerability or safeguarding to that person or that family. So the figures that you've got on there are quite high. Since the report has been written, a further 10 cases have been put forward to our vulnerability partnership, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's a great way, the fact that agencies can come forward and share that information and look for support and advice and the best ways to support their clients who may be struggling, especially around areas of vulnerability. Any further questions anybody would like to ask?
Yeah, if I could just flag, I'm just a little bit confused by some of the data.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the number of referrals we're on page 26. We're looking at the number of referrals to the Vulnerability Partnership.
Yeah.
Last year it was 114. This
Yeah.
year, are you saying that you've added 10 on? So
that won't be on the report. That's
so I'm saying so that'll be 33 added. So if we add 10 on to 23, which is obviously what's showing for this year.
Okay, so what you've got there, you've got Q1 figures for obviously April to June, which is the last column that you've got on the chart. Is that, and then you've got
no, these are by year. This chart's by year.
Sorry, let me just have a look at the. Just bear with me a second while I load up my. I can see what you're looking at.
Unless the chart's been labelled wrong, it's going from 2019 to 2020 up until this year, going into next. So it just doesn't. The numbers are really concerningly low in comparative to 114 last year. And if we were kind of at the start of the year, maybe I wouldn't be concerned. But that's a hugely drastic difference.
The general totals that you've got. So that goes from. So that's the whole total for the year of 2024, that 114. So this, when we input it into Pantara, the way that the charts go, it does it over the whole year. It doesn't let me do it into quarters like it does for the children. So that's something I've picked up with around the systems that we use about how we can better record it. So that 114 figure gives you the whole total for 2024.
Right, okay.
What you've got there at the moment, because like I said, because I have to update it quarterly, so that's just generated the first quarter, which is the first 3 months, which is 23. So when I go in and update the next lot of figures, so we've had another 30 to add to that. So when the chart would pull back up, that would turn that then into 53.
Right. Yeah, I think
And then when I update it again, when I add the next lot of figures, then it will update again. And I don't know why, for some reason, when I pull the charts off, it doesn't let me do it quarterly. It only lets me do it yearly.
I mean, I think in terms of obviously when papers are coming to the committee, if we see things on a chart, one thing's drastically high, one thing's drastically low, we're going to flag it. And obviously if we don't have that context, then we're obviously going to be concerned, because there's quite a few in here that have got that pattern of like drastically high, drastically low. So, yeah.
What I've done from the bottom, I've put the referrals from. So those referrals obviously are a lot higher, because you'll see where the referrals have come from.
Okay.
So that actually gives you an overall figure of 87 that you'll see.
Okay.
In regards to referrals that have come in.
Councillor Doyle, did you want to come in?
Yes, please. Going back to the data, which Councillor Statham had picked up on, how many, when you say that you've got a number of referrals, are they all for single individual cases, or could they be multiple referrals for a particular case? So for instance,
the single figures.
The single figures. Okie dokie.
Yeah.
How of those referrals, are all of them acted upon or found to evidence to support, or have any of them been dismissed? How many are actually actioned, and how many are deemed as requiring no further action?
They're all actioned.
So they're all actioned.
They all have an action. Yeah, they all have an outcome.
Okay. Yeah. When you say outcome,
if there were no further action, they wouldn't come to TVP, because we wouldn't have a solution. We would go back. Every referral that comes in is screened. And if we feel it doesn't hit the threshold for TVP, we'll go back to the referrer and say, what is the outcome? What is it that you want to actually achieve from TVP? Because if there's no outcome, then obviously we're not going to achieve that. So there might be things that it doesn't necessarily come to TVP because it's more of a safeguarding. It's a higher level. So it wouldn't come to TVP because we would say, actually, this doesn't hit the threshold. It has to go to safeguarding because it needs a safeguarding response, an urgent response. It can't wait until a conversation's being had about what's the best place for this person that you've got a concern or worry about.
Okay. Just wanted clarifying about the data and how it's made up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Yeah, I think just on that point of the data, I think going forward, I mean, I understand your point about it not letting you, but if that's the case, we need to change that, because we can't have a report coming to us where something below is contradictory to something directly above it, if that makes sense. Obviously, we don't understand, we don't work with this data day by day, so if we can have that clarified, that'd be great. Did you want to come in, Jo?
Sorry, yeah, I think that's something we will look at, Chair. And I think as well, one of the recommendations in this report is to actually say, can we, because to actually do 2 updates a year to scrutiny on safeguarding, we would like to propose on that recommendation that we do an end of year, an annual report to scrutiny, so that we can then take it to Cabinet, because safeguarding is so crucial. We would like it to go through endorsement at Cabinet in June. So one of the recommendations here that hopefully we can get that full annual data is to do a scrutiny report once a year with the full year, and then we can then get it endorsed and looked at through Cabinet in the June. So that's one of the reasons. But yeah, I will pick that up with Jackie. We'll have a look at that, see if there's anything we can do to make sure that you've got the comparable quarters.
Thank you, Jo. Did you want to come in, Councillor Turner?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just looking at the end of the report where it says options and resourcing implications, it does state that there's no immediate financial implications arising from this report. However, I have been listening where you keep saying, constant training, constant vigilance, and bearing in mind that we are sitting doing the budgets for next year, are the budgets correctly pitched at the moment, or are we going to expect a reduction or an increase to make what we do better?
I can take that. Yeah, the level 1 safeguarding is already included in our staff inductions within the Assure platform. For new starters, counsellors go through that, and that is refreshed. The county council do the safeguarding training. There's a number of identified level 2 staff that need that, which are identified. Jackie has to have the higher level, and myself has to have a level 4 that's done as a safeguarding lead. Those courses, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, they're £50 each through Staffordshire County Council, and there is a small budget that we have that's within the budgets every year. And if we did need to increase it, obviously that is an important area of to do. So at the moment we're okay with it, but it's how we identify.
Thank you, Jo. Members of the committee, have we got any further questions on this report before I move to recommendations? Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. Do we still have a lot of county lines contacts? It was the in thing about 4 years ago, wasn't it? When there's a great deal of mostly drug dealing, I imagine. I haven't seen a large amount of it in Tamworth, although I have seen drug dealing in Tamworth, but not county lines. Does that come generally under the child exploitation side? So,
I think yes, Councillor. I think the county line stuff would probably come through as young people would come through the MACE panels around exclusion from schools, etc. And obviously there's nothing on here specifically that's county lines, but obviously that is a priority for the Community Safety Partnership. And if it was identified that a young person or an adult has been exploited, a lot of, as Councillor Turner sort of referred to earlier, around those people who are referred in and adults, they will likely be some substance misuse, homelessness issues, concerns, mental health. But county lines is specifically something, a different stream on that contextual safeguarding, and it would go through all the appropriate routes.
Thank you. Councillor Luca?
Just a really simple question. When referring to safeguarding, I've had a meeting with the chairman for the British Dance Sports Association, where they've actually identified a safeguarding gap. Have you had any contact with the gentleman? And if not, would you actually like me to drop you off some of the folders and the paperwork so you can have a read through it?
Is this a specific organisation in Tamworth, Councillor Luca?
This is something that obviously covers the safeguarding of children and vulnerable adults, so yes, it will cover Tamworth because it covers the whole country.
If it's an external organisation, I would urge them to go through that front door that Jackie's referred to and make a referral into the County Council as a front door. The safeguarding that we refer to here is people that have been actually referred to or with our partners for Tamworth Borough Council, and sort of about housing issues. But anything that's referring specifically to safeguarding for an external organisation would definitely need to go through that front door at County Council, or if there is a governing body that covers a sports organisations, for argument's sake, then that should be picked up through their own safeguarding officers, because all sports should have. You would expect them to have a safeguarding policy, and they would need to follow their own processes. But I would definitely urge, if there's a concern about a child or an adult, for them to use that front door process, as Jackie's described, through the County Council, where it's not necessarily something that Tamworth Borough Council is dealing with. Is that okay?
The reason why I bring it up is because obviously the amount of dance studios we have in Tamworth, and this is the organisation that's identified the problem.
Thank you. Yeah, and it actually falls under your remit as the County Council if there are safeguarding issues in terms of that. Like Jo has just said, this kind of report refers specifically to contact that Tamworth Borough Council has with people or our partners. But regardless, we appreciate you raising it. Have we got any further questions from?
Sorry, can I just come in as well in regards to that? If it's something that we're commissioning, or if it's a service that's using our facilities, then we do have robust safeguarding anyway that we have to do, and our arts and events team have all been trained in regards to obviously our safeguarding procedures. We do offer support around embedding safeguarding. So there is a blanket policy template that we can provide to organisations. Skivvies is a great support that can help them. Also, victim support Staffordshire also do free safeguarding for charity organisations as well, so they can help signpost. But the overall overarching body goes to Staffordshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership, so they oversee obviously the policies and procedures. We can signpost and help and support them, but we have to be mindful of the fact that obviously they're not a borough council function. We don't employ them from a borough council perspective. So as you were rightly saying, there are lots of organisations that do activities for children within the borough, but the main body has to sit with the partnership, and that information has to be shared with the partnership.
Thank you for that clarification. And as someone who's used Support Staffordshire for their own work, they're really, really great. They offer fantastic signposting and safeguarding policies and training. So we've got a lot of organisations that are able to support on that point. Any further questions or comments, or should I pass over to the portfolio holder? I don't know why you're turning around, because it's you, Councillor Smith. I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, Joe mentioned earlier about the fact that we were going to change the, as it says in the recommendations, the report coming from, bi-yearly to simply just a yearly report. Obviously, that gives us a better overview and comparable between each year in terms of how many cases we've got coming through. And obviously, this is just an update, really, to give you an understanding of what's taking place in terms of safeguarding. We're not actually asking the committee to take any actions as such on any policy when it comes to this report coming through. Do you want me to read out the recommendations?
You can read out the recommendations,
Okay, brilliant.
Councillor Smith.
So the recommendations are as follows. So number 1, review the report and raise any questions in relation to the content with the Assistant Director, Partnerships in collaboration with the portfolio holder for People Services, Engagement, Leisure and Heritage, and therefore thereafter endorse. Number 2, endorse a further report in April 2026 as an annual update for review by Cabinet in June 2026. And number 3, confirm an annual report on the Council's safeguarding duty thereafter to Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny in April 2027 and ongoing.
So that's the recommendations that are on the table. Has anybody got any concerns or... Councillor Turner?
Just a comment, really. I just noticed that you've got a little section that says the background information that Tamworth Borough Council has both the legal and moral duty to protect children and adults from risk. One thing that I don't see in this report, and I guess that you already do, is how do we compare with other councils of a similar size? Do we have that data?
Jackie, I don't know if that comes under the Section 11 audit.
We wouldn't have that data. It would have to be Staffordshire Observatory that would hold that information and that data in regards to what other councils put in place. We do have obviously the district subgroups that feed in to the partnership work that we're doing. Again, quarterly updates in regards to the actions, but that information is completed through a Section 11 audit. So we will complete a Section 11 audit that's reviewed by the partnership. And where we're failing, obviously, we'll be contacted by the partnership to say why is the council not doing what is stipulated in working together, what we should all be doing as part of working together. As a result of that, but we wouldn't personally get those figures from other districts and where they're failing and what they're not good at in regards to that whole overview would be a freedom of information request that would have to come from the observatory to gain that information for about the districts and how their performance.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, it's more about, I've just put me, audit and governance hat on. How are we audited, and is the governance right?
Yeah, that is as obviously the safeguarding per se is that comes through a lot through social services, through the council functions, and that Section 11 audit is the requirement that they actually do every year as the law dictates, and we provide our information into that Section 11 audit and get audited in that way as a partner.
Great, thank you. So we've read out the recommendations. Is everybody happy? Do you want me to read them out again, or are we happy to move? Okay. So I'll need a mover. Councillor Claymore, seconder. Councillor Clark, all those in favour? Great, thank you very much. That's carried. So I want to thank the officers and the portfolio holder for attending this evening's meeting. You are free to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am going to move a motion without notice to change the order of business in tonight's agenda so that we can hear item number 10 next, so that our guest can leave. So I would like to move a motion that under Part 4, Schedule 1, Rule 13.1 of the Constitution, to change the order of the business of the agenda so that we can hear item 10 ahead of item 9. Can I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Turner, seconder. Councillor Clark, all those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 10, now that the motion's been carried. We're moving on to building better communities, community cohesion and engagement strategy. So I'd like to welcome the portfolio holder for Cooperative Council, Community Partnerships and ASB, Councillor Sarah Daniels, and the Assistant Director of Partnerships, Joe Sands, along with Gabriel. I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. I've panicked. I'm really sorry. I don't want to say it wrong. The lovely Gabriel from the Belong Network to update the Scrutiny Committee on the progress of consultation, and we're going to receive a presentation on the draft priority areas for the We Are Tamworth Building Better Community Strategy. So I will hand over to you guys to present. Thank you.
This one's a really brief start. It's just to state how in the recommendations it explicitly says, please can you provide feedback on the presentation around the emerging strategy that will be going to Cabinet, discussing the work of the Belong Network as part of that overarching scheme, We Are Tamworth, the Building Better Community Strategy. So I'm going to hand over to my expert, Joe Sands.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Yeah, we wanted to present this. Obviously, we have the draft strategy going to Cabinet. There's been a lot of work looking at all this through the honest conversations and the emerging priorities, and we're now in this phase where we are now completing that strategy to go to Cabinet. So Gabriel will be taking you through those thematics that we have now, the 6 themes, and we would welcome any further feedback on that. Obviously, once the Cabinet have looked at and endorsed the draft strategy, we would then like to sort of say, well, actually, the health and wellbeing will then be the oversight to that moving forward. So I'll hand you over to Gabriel. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for the introduction, and thank you all for making time on the agendas today. So, as Joe's alluded to, kind of got 4 main objectives here. The first one is to give you a first chance to see the emerging themes out of that strategy, what the key priorities are, what the sub-commitments are, take steers from you on that, and then to also share the draft delivery framework that sits underneath it. That's the framework that moves from what the top line priorities are into the kind of clear actionable areas and the key performance indicators, so the map to how to deliver on that strategy. So again, bringing that to you for your comments before we go to Cabinet. So just a very quick progress update. This project began in the end of last year. It started with a phase of honest conversations, going out into communities and meeting people and talking to them essentially about the disorder of the summer that year, speaking about their experiences of that. That phase is complete. We then moved into a kind of more formalised consultation and engagement phase, which then led into the third phase of a co-production of a We Are Tamworth Building Better Community Strategy. That's what is now on the table for your consideration here. Running alongside that has been a series of skills training sessions supporting staff of partner organisations as well as the VCSE sector in Tamworth to build their skills regarding facilitating cohesion within their communities, and we are slated to deliver more in-depth training for particularly committed members of staff, partner organisations around that. It's professionally accredited. That's where we are in the process. Just a brief comment on reach. I won't spend too much time on that, given that some of you will have seen this before. We've had informal conversations with kind of harder to reach residents. We're aware that that's kind of really key in ensuring this strategy sticks. We've engaged with people staying in the Home Office contingency accommodation in town. We've spoken to officers across Tamworth Borough Council, as well as senior officers at County Council, the local Member of Parliament, and a range of places of worship, as well as the kind of voluntary and community sector. So you can see there's more stakeholders there. I think we feel like it's been a comprehensive engagement process, and we've heard the various comments from these different constituencies. Overall, we've engaged over 500 people. In Tamworth, we've taken a very face-to-face modality. We thought that worked better here, and we've engaged with over 42 organisations here. Okay, so here's the kind of part where we'd appreciate your scrutiny. So after all of that engagement and that reach, we have developed this vision and the kind of subcomponents of that. So at the top line, the vision statement as it stands is our vision for Tamworth is a fairer, more connected and inclusive place where all residents lead safe, healthy and happy lives. And unpacking that further, there's you can see that first kind of sub-point is around really building up a sense of pride and place with a more inclusive kind of local identity. A lot of people feel left out of that. It's key that they feel like they've got a part to play in that. There's a second strand around kind of developing communities that are confident in democratic values and that are resilient to division. So it's not about all having the same opinion, it's about having those opinions and discussing that in a civil way that supports democratic processes, so welcoming that. The third point in that vision is around ensuring that the partnerships are strong and have strong capabilities to develop and deliver on this agenda. And then kind of another really significant part of that is that residents feel that services in regeneration are benefiting them in the neighbourhoods where they live. So that's got a localised dynamic, which I'll unpack a bit more. Everyone needs to feel included and connected to Tamworth and the story of the place. And the final one is around kind of equal access to opportunities, prosperity and well-being. That's the vision statement. Flowing from that vision and the various community consultation steps that we've taken, we've developed 6 priority areas. I'll then go on to unpack these in a bit more detail, but at the top line there's one around pride and place, one around strengthening democratic resilience, building more effective partnerships for strengthening cohesion, that localising agenda, so ensuring that local communities and neighbourhoods feel empowered and strengthening trust with the local authority, fostering neighbourliness, connection and belonging as another key priority, and finally focusing and continuing the good work on deprivation, hardship and inequality, recognising that as a driving factor of community tensions. So that first priority, pride and place, this is fundamentally about building and sustaining a local identity, a sense that people are proud to live in Tamworth and can contribute to Tamworth, and opportunities for them to participate in creating a sense of pride and place. The sub-commitments on this one are about developing a shared and inclusive story that fosters a sense of belonging across all communities, not just communities that can access the town centre, but communities in the neighbourhoods where they live. The second commitment is around leveraging the kind of housing provision, the strong role that Tamworth Borough Council plays, as well as the role that it plays in kind of regulating private housing sector and the kind of housing providers. There's strong connections there, so building on that. The third kind of aspect of pride in place is supporting communities to come together after the events of summer 2024. There's still very different visions about what happened there. A lot of families were directly affected by arrests, and there's some work to be done about how reintegration is facilitated effectively following the return to communities. Second priority is around democratic resilience. So that's about supporting the communities to uphold democratic values facing the kind of really key issue that I know all of you will be really focused on, which is polarisation, mis and disinformation online. Communities need some support around that. So the commitments around this one are enhancing responses to misinformation and racism and prejudice. So that's got some subcomponents around sort of staff capacity development, working with partners to strengthen roles and responsibilities as well. And the sort of second component here is around supporting political leadership. There is clearly strong political leadership within Tamworth Borough Council on this, real desire to foster communities that connect, and so providing stronger support to them to play that role. There's a really strong kind of series of recommendations around how partnerships that already exist and are strong can be further strengthened to develop kind of stronger community connections and build pride in place. The Community Safety Partnership has actually since kind of drafting this report already taken further steps forward in regards to kind of tension monitoring and strengthening community sentiment analysis. They're really key components of this, and there's more to do on work in that area. The civil society and faith sector in Tamworth are remarkably strong, remarkably connected to the communities that it serve. That's a real asset, but like a lot of civil society around the country, they're struggling with the funding environment, they're struggling to continue running, and the strong community relations in Tamworth depends on their sustaining. So I think there's opportunities to better connect them with funding opportunities at the national and regional level, as well as sort of charitable funding. So supporting access to funding via alternative methods. There are certainly good examples of using sport to bring people together across communities. Some of that practice is happening through the active wellbeing team within Tamworth Borough Council. That's been praised in this report. And there are opportunities to actually strengthen that and bring in a wider diversity of stakeholders and the sporting institutions within Tamworth. A very similar recommendation is referencing the business community. Again, within certain business leadership, we're hearing a real commitment to playing a role in fostering connected communities and developing communities. And so it's about creating concrete actions to bring them in, provide them a role, and strengthen collaboration on community development. And then lastly, in relation to this, schools and colleges also showed a high level of motivation on a day-to-day basis. They're working with children and young people around issues of mis and disinformation, and there's an appetite to work more closely with the Borough Council about identifying opportunities for strengthening young people's engagement with activities around pride in place. So, more detail in the strategy. The fourth priority is around localising community empowerment and building trust. That's the point that I made kind of about ensuring that cohesion and the effort to sustain it and support it and strengthen inclusivity is felt in the places where people live. I've heard it referred to as a number of times as the doorstep test. Are people feeling it on their doorstep? So the commitments around that are about enhancing feelings of localised delivery, as I've just referenced. There's a commitment around leveraging and enhancing kind of community ownership and asset management. Recommendations around that are how can we support community members to take ownership and build that pride of place by having increased management over the places where they live. The Pride in Place funding that's going to be distributed through Glasgow Heath is a perfect example of a vehicle that can be used to support that process. Building and strengthening connections across all the communities in Tamworth. That's about maintaining a focus on community development, the regeneration that's happening, but ensuring that is felt in the various communities and neighbourhoods that make up Tamworth. And again, continuing to support funding pathways for building better communities. So that would include the kind of existing budget and commitments around the We Are Tamworth, Space Hive initiatives, so those crowdfunding opportunities, as well as then thinking about what role Tamworth Borough Council can play in directing and bringing in national funding. The fifth theme and priority is around building neighbourliness and connection and a sense of belonging. So that first commitment is around kind of strength, participation in civic life. increasing residents' access to volunteering, their information about volunteering, so they can feel part of the many opportunities that there are in Tamworth. There's a real kind of opportunity to strengthen concrete options for youth voice to be integrated within Tamworth Borough Council, and the kind of partnerships. How are young people seeing a position for them in advocating for their interests? So there's some really exciting options around that. Improving integration support for migrants and people that are seeking asylum in Tamworth. Any support that can be in place around strengthening kind of their access to volunteering can improve that kind of people getting to know each other. Any support that can facilitate language exchange is again something which can foster trust rather than mistrust. The last point around here is about ensuring that there are activities for people to meet each other from different walks of life, including people that are seeking asylum here and long-term residents. So that sense of mistrust from new people arriving can be assuaged where that's possible. And the final point is around tackling deprivation, hardship and inequality. I won't go too much into that, but it's really around kind of equity and opportunity in service delivery, which is already, I know, a real priority. Another commitment is around kind of reducing hardship and inequalities more directly and accessing communities with high levels of deprivation. And then the third point is around inclusive growth. So this slide is just to give a screenshot of what is essentially the delivery framework behind this. So what I shared with you, it's high level, and I'll welcome your feedback on whether or not the broad strokes are what you'd expect. Underneath it, you can see that on the left-hand column, there are the priority areas, and then the long-term commitments that I've shared. Underneath that, there's far more detail, which then goes into a kind of a shorter-term aspect. What are the short-term outcomes we'd look to see if we're achieving our aims? And then what actions and deliverables can be put into that. So one of the key focuses of this strategy was taking an asset-based approach. We're aware that building on what is good here is really key. And so the actions and deliverables that we will further develop alongside Jo and her team are about understanding what's going well here, how we can build on that, what we can strengthen in terms of impact and delivery with the resources that exist. So that's just a slide to say that's what sits behind this strategy to actually deliver it, and it's in development. This is to make you aware of the scrutiny process that the strategy has been through so far and will go through further. Perhaps I won't go through that in too much detail other than to say kind of step one is complete, and we're now into sharing and refining on that full draft, which is what is for your consideration. And you can see the sort of next steps that we have ahead leading up to Tamworth Cabinet on the 13th of November, where we will have a final version. After this, we will continue to work, Belong will continue to work with Jo and her team to add as much detail as possible across the partnerships about how the different partners can contribute to that delivery framework. That was part of the initial brief, was that this delivery framework and the strategy is a Tamworth-wide piece of work. And I think Jo can expand more if she's inclined to about how at the a strategic partnership meeting yesterday with partners, they were really enthusiastic about what's in this and are already asking about how they can start to input actions and deliverables into this framework, which is exactly what we'd look to see from that. So that's where we are, and it'd be great to now, unless Jo would like to say anything else, get any comments from you all, as well as then any specific comments around refinements to that strategy and comments on that delivery framework and how you'd like to see it developing.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. I just want to sort of emphasise that point that we've discussed this through the Better Together Tamworth Strategic Partnership. We had a meeting yesterday with the Health and Wellbeing Partnership that's a multi-agency. And, you know, we've been very clear that this is not a Tamworth Borough Council action or strategy per se. It is a strategy for Tamworth. And each of those agencies have a role to play in that action plan. So whilst the action plan is a delivery framework at the moment, and it won't have full detail of what those actions are, what we would like to do once we've got the draft strategy and the framework for that delivery is to go back then to those partners and say, how are you contributing to this? How are we contributing to this? You know, Gabriel's always, already alluded to the Pride in Place funding. That will have some very specific outcomes and for the people in Glasgow Heath and parts of Stonydelph. And it will also be looking at what the ICB are doing with regards to their locality improvement framework funding around health equity. That's the pilot project already underway now in Glasgow Heath. And that funding is there for the next 2 years, £100,000 per year. So yeah, whilst again we are driving this, we are leading this, and we are producing this strategy, it's not just the Tamworth Borough Council strategy, it is a We Are Tamworth strategy, and that's what we really want to sort of emphasise all the way through this. So yeah, any other comments, considerations that the committee would like to put forward, more than happy to discuss.
Councillor Daniels, did you have anything to say before we move to discussion?
Really happy with what has been presented in quite a lot of the conversations, so genuinely respecting what people want to add in on top. That's
Fab.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, firstly, I just want to thank all of you for your work that you've done. The Blong Network have been doing some fantastic work over the past, 12 months, and Jo and her team have been working tirelessly on this. So just a big thank you, really, and thank you for putting up with me breathing down your neck on it as well. I'll hold my comments for now, and I'll go to the committee first. Have we got any comments or questions around the proposed framework? Councillor Luca?
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question because I'm bound to actually be asked it myself. Around the asylum seekers in the hotel, you said that you want to involve them in volunteering. What safeguards are you going to put in place for, obviously, to check their background, where the majority of them actually threw their identities away? So how are you going to check their backgrounds and make sure that they are actually safe for their environments that you're going to place them in as volunteers?
Can I just come in on that point first? I think, firstly, national legislation, just off, in my line of work, I kind of know the line is that if an asylum seeker does arrive, they are screened. They do have things in place to do those checks. So there is things in place. Is there anyone else that wants to expand on that point?
Just to say that the volunteering opportunities are very specific. They already have, a lot of the people seeking asylum already have done volunteering work with some of our voluntary sector. They are all, they are not done They are supervised whilst they're doing that work. They would never have contact individually with vulnerable adults or children at risk. So yeah, the volunteering at the moment is specifically community based. So they've done a lot of litter picking. They've done a lot of sort of maintenance on grounds maintenance, and they've also volunteered in cafes and so forth. So yeah, the safeguarding checks will be there.
Thank you, Jo. Councillor Luca, was there anything else on that point?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that answer. But obviously, I had to ask that because no doubt when I go back to the Staffordshire, they're going to ask me what happened on. So I needed to have that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luca. Yeah, just a few things from me, if I can. Firstly, I think it's great, and I think having a framework is really important because it means that all the organisations can just do what they want, basically, within those remits. Then they're not being told, right, you've got to run a programme based on with this and this and this. They've got a lot of freedom within it, which I think is really positive. I think there was parts in it around obviously challenging difficult views and things like that, but I think we need to do that, and I know I've spoke to Gabriel about this previously, we need to do that in a way that also educates but is understanding of people's views. So, for example, just today, there's a petitions committee that's come to the House of Commons, and Tamworth is the #1 signatory constituency in the entire country. And I'll just read out the wording of the committee, of the petition for the committee. It's to stop financial and other support for asylum seekers. This petition is to advocate a stop of financial and other support provided to asylum seekers by the government. This includes shelter, food, medical care and cash support. and that has received over 1,200 signatories in Tamworth. So I think, based on that alone today, there's still a lot of people in Tamworth who have concerns, and I think we need to be careful that we don't label everyone with the same brush. It's okay to have those concerns, and I think I don't know whether there needs to be more in the framework about having difficult conversations, but also understanding the reasons as to why people have those emotions. Because I know we're talking about deprivation, but I worry that we might be assuming that's the reason why they've got those concerns. I think we need to try and figure out why people feel like that. And on that point, I've spoke again previously to both Joe and Gabriel about this. What mapping has been done of deprivation? Are we looking at specifically targeting certain areas? And on that, are we going to do kind of like, sorry to use a corporate term, but are we going to do KPIs on certain areas of, you know, if we're putting it, you know, a framework or a workshop here, how do those people feel before and after those types of things? And obviously the Pride in Place funding is fantastic. It's great that we've got that, but it is only just one area of Tamworth. And there's areas that have been raised, such as Belgrave, that have missed out on funding, or, you know, Amington. There's a lot of other areas that also could do with that type of funding. So what are we doing to address those areas so that they're not left behind? And on the point of Pride and Place, it would be great when we know what a committee looks like to have the Belong Network have a seat on there, so that this framework can feed into that work and be kind of like an overarching thematic that carries that work through. But they're kind of most of my initial thoughts. And one thing that came to me is that we should have a Tamworth Youth Council that comes in this committee room, comes in this chamber and debates. I know that skivvies do something similar, and I know we have like youth parliament, but actually if we want to engage young people to talk about the issues that matter to them, why don't we open up this chamber to them? So I don't know who needs to do something with that. I'm happy to drive it when I'm not busy doing another campaign. But yeah, they're kind of my initial takeaways. I don't know whether you want to respond or hear from everyone else first.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll sort of respond to your points one by one. So around the general approach of ensuring that this has got a sort of approach of empathy where people are, that's what we hope is carried through in this strategy. Once you see into the detail, which I obviously wasn't able to share with you today, I think it's specifically come through around the kind of, there's a recommendation about establishing a network of community champions. That's about having a kind of a community-led approach with this, that it's not council down to communities, it's developing that language and that messaging and it coming from trusted voices. So that's something that's in there, and I think hopefully that would have that kind of empathetic approach built in. Understanding and being sensitive to why people have the views they have. In the training that we've delivered so far, there's a strong component to mapping that and contextualising those. In the training we're proposing to bring forward, that again is a kind of key focus. It's understanding how underlying needs shape perspectives being shaped and supporting kind of staff to develop a sensitivity towards that. Ultimately, we think that's an effective way of then supporting people to reflect on those. The training, we're also in a conversation at the moment with Joe's team about how we stagger that training to support the development of any neighbourhood board that then steers or supports that community Pride in Place funding as well. So again, connecting to that point, I think that would be a way of using the existing funding that's spent already on this to support that process and empower that group to consider cohesion in relation to that. The mapping deprivation, the team in the conversations we've had kind of has a strong idea about where this needs to be focused, and the strategic priority around localising is essentially informed by that conversation that we've had. KPIs, there's a column for it in the delivery framework, and once we populate what actions we can put next to those priorities, then we'll get KPIs on that so we can monitor how that's going, and this contract ensures that we accompany Joe's team throughout that phase, so however that's required, we'll support that. And your recommendation about a Tamworth Youth Council, that dovetails very snugly with the kind of recommendation that we make around kind of strengthening mechanisms or platforms for youth voice, whatever that looks like. That's up to you.
And I think, I think the youth voice is very important, and we've found through the work of the strategic partnership that the schools are very, very much on board with this. They're very keen to get involved. We saw when we talk about community recovery, the wonderful Kaleidoscope of Dreams events, things like that. The college obviously want and have hosted, some of the workshops, so that the appetite is there for young people to be involved. And I did mention earlier to Gabriel that Skivvies, the Staffordshire Council for Volunteering, young people volunteering, are actually doing a scheme at the moment to find the youth champions themselves, which they are rolling out, and I'm going to the launch of that to sort of see how that can be looked at for Tamworth. We're working with the schools through the Future Leaders programme as well, and we're also looking at tackling things that have come up to the schools that we hadn't really thought of. One of those being misogyny, and we've already commissioned some workshops through Rawlet. They've done the pilot through that, which we want to bring into schools next year. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's going on in the background with those organisations, and being that training that Gabriel has alluded to. And when we're talking about KPIs, yes, we have, you can get KPIs for community cohesion, but what we want to develop is KPIs for Tamworth. So if we've done that project, or something's being adapted, or now going forward in this strategy, how has that changed for Tamworth, and what does that Tamworth KPI look like? It's not. We don't want to focus on aspects of racism or people seeking asylum or deprivation, but that community cohesion aspect covers a wide range of everything, and it's how people feel about living in their area, isn't it? So hopefully with that training and that difficult conversations, some organisations may want to sort of take that accreditation and actually be the trainers, if you like, or champions, as Gabriel has said. So yeah, I think once we now have that draft framework, we can then start populating that with our partners.
That's great, thank you, Jo. And my mind is running wild about creating a youth council, so we're going to have a conversation after this, because I've got so many ideas about schools doing their own mini general elections and having representatives, and we divvy up the chairs between all the schools and colleges. So that's my next project after Tamworth calls it out. I'm telling you now on record, that's the next project. Councillor Luca?
Thank you, Chair. Just what you're talking about, the Youth Council, you might want to actually get in touch with Tony Screen at Staffordshire County Council, because we're actually looking at a very similar project where we bring schools in to the chambers and we teach them about debating what the council actually does, and basically to build up so they've got an understanding of exactly what it actually takes to run an area and the type of problems that you're going to be facing, obviously, as you start coming into the working world and all that. So I would highly suggest that you speak to Tony Screen.
Thank you. I'll take you up on that offer when I have the capacity to start my next project. Committee, has anybody got any comments or anything that... Yep, Councillor Margaret Clark.
Thank you. Sorry, too many Clarks, aren't there?
Too many.
Sorry, Lee. Inclusion is the word. Sorry, I've just watched Grease again. So inclusion is the word here. And from a council point of view, our communication has got to get better and better, and we've got to listen and listen and listen. We know about deprivation. We have 5 food banks. We don't want 5 food banks, for example. We don't want deprivation. So, inclusion creates the information that we need to stop bad things happening to our people, and to include age groups as well. How many junior infant schools now have a granny day? We always used to have a granddad or a grandma go into a school and say, when I was, and the amazement is terrific. Children are terrifically intelligent, and at the very young age they're very sponge-like. They take it all in, they really do. But when you get to, the senior schools, their intelligence just grows. It really does. You can walk in and say, "Oh gosh, parents are a pain, aren't they?" And they'll nod like heck. And then, you know, and then they say, "Well, you're not too good either, are you?" And they'll say, "Well, not really." And I think a lot of schools have debating societies. I don't see why council shouldn't drop in on them. You know, I've certainly been into an infant school and a junior school and said, you know, if I said all the blue-eyed people were better than the brown-eyed ones, what would you tell me? Oh, and they tell you. You know, we really do have a large element in our society. Yes, we have an elderly population share, I know that, but we have got up-and-coming families with 2 and 3 children, and they're going to be a different cohort every year, and we really must include them, whether it's through sport activities in every area, not just the town centre or at a local place where they have to pay, in each area. If there's a piece of grass, put something on it that's useful for every age group, even if it's a bench for the elderly people in the sheltered housing. Because then you can get a young person talking to an old person, and that helps a lot. And the fact that people should know that it's okay to be different and it's okay to have a different opinion. You don't have to have a war. So in good communication from us, you know, suggestion box at Marmion House, you know, no swearing, just put it in the box. Anonymous if you like, but it's a suggestion that's positive to Tamworth, and they don't have to make our officers think all the time. So let's listen to people as well. Sorry, Chair, I went on a bit.
Don't apologise.
I could say, can I just add that, yeah, I think that fits perfectly. And when we were talking about using community assets, one of those is about, you know, making best use of our spaces. So, like you said perfectly, you know, about a bench or a piece of grass or whatever that is, that's very specifically one of those, you know, themes around using our assets.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to do around community ownership of green spaces. There's a lot that I could tell you, so many areas where there's just patches of grass that you could easily do a community kind of garden in. I know that we've got some fantastic community gardening at Anchor. I can't. Am I saying this right? Is it Anchor Moor? Yeah. Yeah, at the Belgrave allotment, and Councillor Norkie is a big supporter of that. So it's projects like that we should be looking at and saying, right, okay, that works, that creates community and it's positive and it's actually lifting up the area and giving it, you know, fresh lick of paint. But it's not at a cost to the council necessarily, but it benefits the community, because I know sadly we do have to talk about money, so what things aren't going to cost money, things like that. Councillor Claymore.
Thank you, Chair. Just want one little quote. The one thing we've all got in common is that we're all different. The one thing that I didn't notice on any of the slides that were put up was anything about communication. Now, I know in the past, from personal experience, that we at TBC have been a bit lacking in communication. So, although I know this isn't a TBC project as such, I still think we need to make it very clear, and we need to communicate with the residents in what we're proposing to do and how we're going to go forward with it. So that was just my view.
Completely agree. Everything should have a comm strategy, if you ask me. So it'd be really useful if when we see this again, there's something around that larger piece around how we're going to communicate this. But I agree completely. It needs to be top of the priority list. Did anyone else? Yes.
Well, just to add to that, I mean, if we want people to come with us and to discuss things with us, we've got to form that communication. We've got to be the ones who go out there and form that communication with people. And if we don't do that, we're not going to find out what people think and what people want and what people desire.
Completely agree. And it was really reassuring to see how many people you'd spoken to face to face and the amount of organisations. Was it 42 organisations? I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, really, really well done on that. Anyone else want to come in? No? Well, I can move to the recommendations if everyone's happy with that. And just to add, if you do have any thoughts or anything that springs to mind afterwards, do get in touch with Joe and Gabriel. And if it's something that you don't feel comfortable saying, obviously live on council, please do get in touch with them. It's really important that everyone's voices are heard in this. So I really encourage anyone that hasn't said something to get in touch if you want to. So the recommendations, am I all right to read them out? Yeah. So the recommendations are that we endorse the identified themes to ensure that they reflect the lived experiences and aspirations of Tamworth's communities. We provide feedback on the presentation to be presented at the meeting around the emerging draft strategy, which will be discussed at Cabinet on the 13th of November, and that we endorse the oversight of the strategy and action plan in conjunction with the Better Together strategic partnership. Could I have a mover? Councillor Margaret Clark, a seconder? Councillor Lee Clark, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you to the portfolio holder and for Gabriel for attending this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll see you back at the committee soon, hopefully. Thank you very much. I told Sarah she could leave, but she can't. Sorry. We move to agenda item 9, community recovery grants. So I'd like to re-welcome the portfolio holder for Cooperative Council, Community Partnerships and ASB, and Joe, the Assistant Director of Partnerships, to update us on the government's community recovery grants project to date. So I'll hand over to Joe or Councillor Daniels.
I've got double screen
Yeah.
here. I was like, what's that?
So there are lots of crossovers, and I think a lot of the same themes are going to kind of emerge. Definitely the idea of please can we get some of the feedback in particular as I look at recommendation 3 about your thoughts on what the outline measures of success are. One of the things I really like about health and wellbeing when I was on it and come to the committee is different people's work experiences, refreshing experiences they bring along. So I'm looking forward to what Councillor Turner may have to add in terms of whether we have got effective measures of success going on here. Again, it's about discussion, it's about communication. So this is a very specific community recovery grant. Over to Joe.
For those members that were, I did do an all-councillor sort of overview of the Community Recovery Fund, and it's kind of opportune at the moment to just bring this here again, just because we're about to sort of finish that strategy. So at the moment, some of these projects are still ongoing. I don't have specific outcomes at the moment, but it'd be interesting to take any further feedback as to, again, as we start delivering and we start understanding KPIs and what the outcomes of these projects have been. So as you remember, the Community Recovery Fund was 600,000 that was given to Tamworth following the disorder in August 2024. So, as we know, we've got with the Belong Network our commission to follow on work until March 27. We've outlined the strategy. We have that now coming to Cabinet. We have the ongoing workshops as we've just discussed. We've developed, or we are developing, looking at a tension monitoring system with our Community Safety Partnership, which is at the moment quite a large spreadsheet, but we take stuff that we come and we see on social media, from the police, from our own staff, and we can monitor those and actually take appropriate action if we need to in certain areas. It will also allow us to understand where we have some concerns, and we are working on devising and progressing looking at that countering misinformation, as Gabriel has always said, within the strategy. The Community Recovery Fund in its entirety was complete as different projects. The Space Hive is at the moment going very well. The Space Hive crowdfunding was designed so that the communities themselves and groups can bring forward ideas that maybe they didn't have funding for before or wanted some additional support, and actually get the support through the community. So we have 3 of the first 5 projects have achieved the target income as of the 23rd of September. One is about 93%. One has actually put back a little bit while they're still working on it, because it's still the groups have got to do some. So that is rolling forward on the platform. And we've now got 4 new projects identified. 3 have gone live. There's a fabulous project that the Seventh-day Adventist Church, through the Afro-Caribbean Society, are doing a gospel choir project in Wilnecote. There's an arts project that's coming online, a youth project through the Fun Club, and a further football project that is just about to come through. So they are now on that platform, and again, I'd encourage councillors to have a look at those projects. And a lot of councillors have actually contributed to some of the Space Hive projects with the with their grant process. At the moment, for the money that we're investing through community recovery and external grants, it's for every £1 that we're investing, we're getting £1 back through community and group contributions. So it's a fantastic way of fostering that sort of community cohesion. The Kaleidoscope of Dreams Festival, we went through this. The evaluation has just been undertaken. I've just come back from leave, so there is an email in my inbox that's with some evaluation, so I will gladly share that around participation and feeling from the schools around the Kaleidoscope of Dreams. There is some further funding still in that pot, and the schools have said that they would really love to do another kind of event like that next year. The Future Leader programme, there is now commencing September. They are running a series of online workshops. They've attended the Head Teachers Forum. They've now got around 60 young people signed up across the high schools, specifically to look at some of these more contentious sort of mindset, looking at uni versus apprenticeship. So it's about trying to raise aspiration, misinformation, critical thinking, financial literacy, self-care, communication and networking, public speaking and networking, and writing CVs. So it may be some of these young people will be, as you mentioned, Councillor Statham, they may well want to be looking at whether they want to be involved in that future leader. And it's the idea of the Future Leaders programme is to try and bring them back and say, what can they give to their community and what can they do within their communities. Keele University have now ran the projects with businesses, smaller businesses, ethnic minority people run to look at the principles of business setup, social inclusion as well, and sort of hate crime, talking about prejudice. To date, 36 people have registered for the workshops, and the feedback will be provided. The last workshop was on the 27th of September. So that's a kind of a first grassroots sort of approach to try and get businesses involved in cohesion, with their own workforces. The Active Wellbeing Project is underway as well. There's tennis sessions going on, community sports programme, sports integration. We are still working on how we can work with Sports Club around a Kick It Out campaign around, combating racism in sports. The sports library is up and running in the activity centre in the Castle grounds. Again, we are waiting. We were hoping that potentially by the end of the year, we can bring back to the committee actual sort of participation by the end of March, because I will have to report back to the MHCLG around this funding. The Unity Shield project is actually taking a role of its own. I'm really proud to sort of say what's going on with this. It's a community-led sculpture project that symbolises resilience, strength, community and peace. It's looking at intergenerational community cohesion through the creation of a large-scale collaborative metal sculpture. I don't know whether any members have been down to the castle or took part, and you've actually gone in there and done some blacksmithing. The project, the actual sculpture will be on permanent display at Tamworth Castle. So far, they've reached over 100 people in the workshops. They've had people seeking asylum have gone into the community drop-ins. There's also, or has been taking place while I was away, a wonderful workshop with dementia care. So a lot of carers and the people with dementia took part in the project, and the Heart of Tamworth craft group. So the Unity Shields project has been going around Tamworth. They've actually taken part. There's some little quotes there. One guy, yeah, and that is one of the guys seeking asylum. Unity means helping others and respect and love, and be friends with people they welcome and connect. I can connect with others. So there's some nice little feedback coming in through to the castle. So that hopefully will be a really nice legacy once it's completed. So what does success look like? This is one of the questions, and I think what we've discussed this before. It's gone in when we're developing the KPIs, an enhanced understanding of Tamworth communities and improved perception, more informed and engaged communities, work to make residents safer, improved knowledge, empathy and informed communications, as you mentioned, Councillor Claymore, the communication aspect, improved integration of different communities through sport and activity, improved health and wellbeing, improved civic pride, improved involvement amongst young people, peer mentoring, integration, pride in the history of Tamworth, improved understanding on hate crime, improved cultural understanding, increased community and business involvement, all of which are the thematics that have gone now into that strategy. And as I've mentioned there, and mentioned before, with this funding, the development of those key performance indicators. And that's just there, that some of the spend highlights on the capital. Holloway Stables has now got a nice art room and community venue that's been upgraded. We are Tamworth on the community projects, and there is still 25,000 which will be attached to the strategy as separate grants to voluntary sector arising from that strategy. So that's where we are with the spend. Attached to the report is the detail of the spend and how we've actually spent that 600,000 for transparency. And as again, it was involved a lot of work across all partners. Very happy to take questions, and that's where we are with the community recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo, for that. Really appreciate the presentation. I'll go to questions first because I have a couple of points, but I'll go to the committee first. Councillor Clark?
Just a small detail with regard to inclusion. If the shield that's going to come to pass is in the castle, that might be a bit inhibitive to people who can't get to the castle. Is it possible that it might be at some stage in Marmion House or the Town Hall?
I'm absolutely sure we can take that feedback back, Councillor Clark, no problem at all. And I suppose it just depends how large it is and how heavy it is and how we can transport it. But I'm sure that part of that will be very definitely considered, because I think that's a very good point. Thank you.
Do you think Mr Mayor might agree with you? Hopefully.
I'm sure he will.
I'm sure we'll all do our bit to carry it down the hill. There's a couple of things that I just want to flag. Just around the tension monitoring, fantastic to hear that that's happening, because I feel like that was the one thing that I was like, what are we doing to make sure this works? Where's the KPIs? So that sounds really promising. Are we basing that on a model that someone else has used? Is there any other organisations or local authorities who have done that previously?
I'm not aware that there's working models. When we were researching and working with Gabriel and having a look, we've had a look at some sort of academic models on it. Yeah. So the spreadsheet itself is based on that. But what we want to be able to do, we want to be able to say, well, what have we seen on social media? What's been reported to the council? What do the police know? Have we had graffiti over there? And so we monitor those incidents, and there is a very specific type. We've sort of created types of tension monitoring, whether it be graffiti or just someone mouthing off or a protest, and then where it is and what the immediate actions are, whether it can be closed down or whether it needs a follow-up. Those are then being discussed at the community safety. They will be discussed at the community safety partnership meetings, And there is a specific agenda item on each ASB coordination meeting if there's anything specific on community cohesion concerns that might want to be raised. And it's also raised then through the weekly meetings we have with, the fortnightly meetings we have with the Home Office and the police around anything regards racial tensions.
Okay, that's really reassuring. It'd be great to hear more about that kind of tension monitoring model at a later date. Just on the kind of the comms side of things, because I know multiple members have raised it. And obviously you've sent the funding proposal. Are we still, if we're still waiting for someone over kind of if we're still waiting for someone on that comms position, I just have some concerns around it, because I know we're a local authority and I know that we're really, every local authority is strapped for cash, but I have real concerns at the pay we're offering for what we're asking. Is that 40,000? Is that for the entirety of the 2 years?
The 40,000 is for 1 year full-time post. That obviously
Okay.
that post is in our comms team, and she has been working. We've also got the funding officer that's part funded by this, the external funding officer, who's actually physically making arrangements to go out to projects, to meet people, to actually make sure that we've got some funding, that we get the bang for the bucks, as it were, on some of the projects. What we are looking at with our comms team is now making some more, I don't know whether members have seen, rather than just doing a press release where we've given grants, they've actually had some feedback from those groups, and they've had videos and blogs and so forth on there. So we're hoping that that's making a more positive news story, as it were, on some of the projects that are going ahead.
Yeah, that's great. I've just remembered I actually have met the individual that you're referring to. My apologies. So I take back those concerns. And then just lastly from me, a couple of things. First of all, obviously going into November, white ribbon, so that's something else that we can do as well, that's community based. And just on the kind of the Keele University business workshops, I've spoke to a few businesses and the feedback hasn't been very positive. So I just wondered what I know obviously we're waiting for that feedback to come through formally, but what kind of are the KPIs around that, and how much funding specifically? Forgive me if this spreadsheet's quite a lot, forgive me if I can't see it, but specifically on those business workshops, do we know how much we've spent?
It's in the spreadsheet, and forgive me, I've not got it on my computer. I think it's around 14,000. Can't remember. Yeah. I'll come back on that. I'll happily come back to you on that, Chair, because I know that the Economic Development Officer is just waiting for the feedback. Obviously, we started a lot of these projects from scratch, so I guess some of them aren't going to be roaring successes every time. We try things, we improve it, and we learn from what we've done. And when we had the money from the government, that was one of the questions that I asked originally. A, around the timescale of spending that money, and B, I suppose we haven't got to be afraid to fail or not be successful as what we are. So therefore, we need to learn from it if it wasn't the right thing to be doing, and it may be moving forward. I'm hoping within that strategy that once we start working with businesses, we understand a little bit more about their requirements and how that will work towards community cohesion. One of the things I've always said, how do we encourage that social value? How do we encourage their social responsibility as well? So yeah, I will definitely get that feedback on those projects. And again, if it's not been as successful as what we've hoped, then we will learn from that.
Great, thanks, Jo. Have we got any more comments or questions from the committee? Councillor Luca?
Yeah, just two-part question. My first part is, when you give her the funding out, what is the criteria for the funding to be granted? And then the second part is after you give the funding out, what do you actually do to order it, make sure that the money's actually spent where they said they're going to spend it, please?
The criteria on the it was a very generic criteria on the community fund. It was just around sort of community resilience, community confidence. The Space Hive funding has got very specific criteria before the grants go onto the platform, and that is then looked at before it goes on there. Each project has its own service level agreement within it. It very specifically says how that money can be spent and what their project is. Each project has also got a set of KPIs, which I will bring back to the committee. And that is then spent. We've always had to say, groups have got to have safeguarding policies, they've got to have insurance, they've got to have modern slavery statements, they've got to have everything that they need to complete these projects before we even let them have that money. So that they're either contracted like Belong are through a tender, or they are committed through a service level agreement and a grant funding agreement, and they are then audited at the end.
Any further questions or comments from members? No? Well, unless you want to wrap it up, Jo, I'll move to recommendations, yeah?
Absolutely fine, thank you.
So the recommendations are that the committee consider and endorse progress of grant funding to date, receive further updates following completion of the projects, and consider the outlined measures of success being developed through the We Are Tamworth Building Better Community strategy, and provide feedback. Can I have a mover? Councillor Turner, seconder. Councillor Helen Hadley, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you to the portfolio holder and the assistant director for their attendance. You are free to leave. Thank you so much. Sorry, it's been a long one. So I'll move on to item number 11. Sorry, we're nearly at the end, everyone. Item number 11, working group updates. We currently don't have any working groups. If anyone wants to establish one, please feel free. I feel like I've got my own working group in my own time with Women's Voices, so anyone that isn't involved and wants to be involved, let me know. Agenda item number 12 is Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Work Plan. So everyone has received an updated work plan, and you're going to notice a few changes on it because we've now, we've gone through, obviously, remind me of the name.
So we haven't. So we haven't officially changed the scrutiny committees over, but in anticipation of the changeover, then we have had the transition. That's the word I can get. So we have sort of looked to start moving some of the items across. So we've got some items.
So there's going to be some items that will come into the committee's remit within time. So we've now. The next meeting is on the 25th of November, where we're going to expect the following. So we've got additional house of multiple occupancy licensing, so HMO licensing, corporate domestic abuse policy, and we're also expecting the corporate ASB and environment crime policy as part of that transition, as well as the community safety update. The corporate hate crime policy is also going to be on the forward plan with view to come to us in November. There also has been a work planning proposal which has been submitted by Councillor Pallett, which you should have all received in circulation for consideration. However, Councillor Pallett was unable to make it tonight, and she's also asked that if we can hold off considering this item until she's able to attend, as she's done a lot of work with the residents on this. So I asked her if she'd be happy with deferring it, so she has the opportunity to present to the committee and give her kind of version of events on that. So would everyone be happy with that? Any objections on that? No? I don't need to vote, do I, on that? No, that's fine. And then agenda item 13 is the forward plan. So everyone's received the recent update of the forward plan. If anyone's got any items on there that they believe should be added to the agenda at all? No, if you go away and think of anything, just drop me and Leanna an email. I'm sure we'd be happy to pop it on the agenda going forward. So that is the last item on our agenda this evening. So I'd like to thank members and officers and members of the public for watching at home, for attending. I will close the meeting at 8:22. Thank you very much.
Thank you.